All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:02. And first thing we'll go over is our board norms. We want to maintain our focus, communicate respectfully, be present, keep the board productive and effective, and respect the agenda. Those are our board norms.
I forgot to put it on the agenda, but additions and corrections to the agenda. Number 3, or I'm sorry, C under new business, unpaid leave request. That's a mistake by Mr. Antone. It's actually an employee of WCSU, not WRED. So I will be bringing that to the executive committee, but I appreciate the officers helping me think through it. So thanks, guys.
All right. Well, we'll scratch that one. Always like to take things off the agenda. Excellent. Anybody have anything else in addition for the agenda?
Al, I wasn't sure if you saw, we did receive an email. It was sent to board members as well as Principal Bernardo at Jamaica Village from Lisa Mann. I wasn't sure if that was already included in the correspondence or if we could just maybe take a peek at what she had to say and then someone can write back to her.
Yeah, actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but I believe somebody did write back. But I think it also brings up the great point that we probably should go ahead and put that into our agenda for next month and be prepared for it and titling it school choice. Okay. Does that sound good, Bill?
Yeah. Keegan, the letter came to Pam, and so Pam responded to it. And then at the end of the letter, it said to pass it on to WRED. So I think we want to give it due time. So I think that's a good suggestion, Al, to put it on the March meeting. And then I'll ask Pam to reach out to Miss Mann to let her know that we will put both her correspondence and an agenda item on there. So if she would like to come to speak to it, she can be prepared.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? No. All right.
You did have in your packet a correspondence from Pam letting the board know that she was not going to put her name in the hat for the administration interviews that were going to be necessary after we reduced a administrative position. So I included that for all the board members.
Thanks, Bill. And thank you, Pam. Really, really appreciate everything you've done. I don't know if anybody else would like to speak to that.
Thank you, Al.
Yes, I would second that. It's a big job and it's a big ask and it's a crazy time. And all of these things are, a lot of this has been put on you, Pam, and I just really appreciate the grace that you've handled things with.
Well put, Lindsay.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you, Pam, for all the work you've done at our school. Thank you. And we'll miss you.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Danny loves
pleasure.
working with you too, Pam, on the school board stuff, school club stuff. I do school board. She does club.
Got it covered. Go ahead, Scotty.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that it's been amazing working with Pam for all of us. She really made the leadership team. We've really been focused on teaching and learning, and she is really great at supervision evaluation, and that's something that I hope to continue to work with her, in some regard on my stuff on the supervision evaluation. Again, Pam, you've been wonderful to work with and great to get to know. Let's see your hand. Pam fell down and broke her arm last week, so she's also incredibly dedicated and hardworking. Thank you, Pam.
She's had it rough. Thanks, Scotty. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I want to echo Scotty's comments. It's been an absolute pleasure working with Pam for the last couple of years. She worked with us a couple of years ago as an instructional coach and then came back, as you know, as the Jamaica principal and the academic dean at Leland and Gray. and the level of depth of experience that she brings and the knowledge that she brings around instructional pedagogy and curriculum development is profound. And it's a huge loss for the district. And I hope that we can find ways to connect with her as a consultant, perhaps in some ways. I think she's fantastic to have on board. And as long as she still has a connection in Wardsboro with her retirement home, we hope to still engage her in some way.
Thank you.
Joe, am I missing anybody?
No, I don't see any more hands.
All right. We've got your number, Pam.
Apparently.
So, thank you very much. Really, really appreciate it. All right. So moving on to new business. The annual meeting warning. Joe, would you mind? I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Members of the public and then student reports.
Oh, big and bold. I don't know how I missed it. Sorry about that, Bill.
And you've got a hand,
Yeah,
Patty,
okay.
probably under members of the public.
All right. Yes,
Hi.
members of the public. Hi, Patty. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have something I want to read. I didn't want to, not very good at the impromptu, but at the last budget committee meeting, Bob spoke about the unrest, the yearly discussions of budget cuts caused Leland and Gray community. I would like to speak about the unsettling feeling, the constant reference to a school closing is mentioned every time future planning comes up in discussion. We all know which school it is because JVS has had a target on its back since before that hot June night in 2017. Future planning and the requisite school closing is mentioned multiple times in meetings. This is unsettling to our wonderful Jamaica staff, our faculty, our students, our parents, and our community. Community members who have consistently supported Leland and Gray with our votes to pass budgets. I hope the board will be more sensitive going forward to what this does to the morale of Jamaica. It's really bad, and I hope it will stop. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Are you suggesting, Patty, that we stop discussing closing any schools as part of our future plan?
No, but Joe, we know what school you're talking about. Future planning, when it comes up, every time it comes up, the idea of closing a school comes up. We all know what it is, which school it is. It's been, and I hope people will be sensitive. The future planning committee has not even met yet. There's no plan yet. And I think it should wait till there's a full thing and that I'm sure that many people in Jamaica would not have a problem with Jamaica closing if there was something to look forward to, if there was something better, if this would help make something better. But no, that's not the discussions. The discussions of future planning, and right off the bat, it goes right to, well, and that may mean closing a school. That has to stop. I'll tell you, there are people in Jamaica who are looking for options, and we're tired of being the Cinderella in the room. So just, it's bad. It's not appropriate for it to be discussed right now at this point, every single time it comes up. You are not gaining any community support from Jamaica right now. None whatsoever. So thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Keegan.
Carolyn Partridge has joined us.
Oh, hello, Carolyn.
Hi.
Hi. So, Carolyn, we will try to move through the next couple things quickly. If not, then we will shift to you. So, apologies. I don't know if Laura has joined us as well.
Don't worry. Take your time, Al. I joined a little early because I always I'm always concerned about foul ups as I try to get online. So you go ahead and do your meeting. I might stop my video. Laura is the person who has really the detailed stuff. I can give you an overview, but Laura is the one with the details.
Okay, great. Thank you,
I'll
Karen. I
let you know
appreciate
when
you
Laura
joining.
comes on too.
What's that?
I'll let you know when Laura joins as well.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Go ahead, Keegan.
I just wanted to follow up and thank Patty for raising her concerns. I know the entire town of Jamaica really wants what's best for all of the kids of Jamaica and the kids that are all part of our complete school district. But she's absolutely right. The same way that we had the conversations are the academic exercise of asking the principals to find $500,000 back with the budget committee, and knowing that that had led to some pretty unsavory conversations with staff members. I think we as a board need to be really cognizant of our word choice and how we talk about different difficult, topics. We know that we need to do a lot of restructuring. We know that changes need to happen. And we also know that it's a big conversation with lots of avenues to consider. But if we could be cognizant of how we talk about individual communities and the sacrifices that are going to be asked of them, I think we will fare better with our relationships if we're mindful of that. So thank you very much, Patty. I agree with you. It's a robust and hard conversation. And when we're ready to have those robust conversations, I'm hopeful that the leaders of this adventure, this time, will be cognizant of the feelings and lingering and the lingering effects of what those words have. So thank you.
I would completely agree, Keegan, and certainly for my part, I apologize if that came off from me in any way like that. Yes, these are going to be incredibly hard, difficult decisions that we have to make. I mean, Lori could speak to the number that we need to get to for getting below the excess spending threshold, which ultimately is the goal. But at the same time, yes, Patty, we want to do what is absolutely best for all of our kids in every single town. So yeah, and we will. And again, I apologize, and for my part, I will be more mindful of that in my speaking.
Thank you. I appreciate your concern.
Thanks, Patty. All right, student reports. Didn't forget at that time, Bill.
Ken's hand is up as well.
I'm sorry, whose hand?
Ken.
Hello, Ken.
Do you see the yellow on his face?
No.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know he was a member of the public. No.
I'm not a member of the public. I'm on this board. I think.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Anyway, first off, on this thing about closing schools, we can't close a school unless we have a vote from the town. Okay, that's in the articles, and I implore it stays in the articles, and that never becomes an article change. Also, if we're going to be talking about restructuring, there's one solution where we can have all the buildings open and to utilize them to their max. And I brought this up in the past. So in the future, when we talk about reorganizing, what we need to talk about is if we're going to have 2 elementary schools, what we need to do is keep Townsend open as a pre-K and take the students from Townsend and have a north and a south in the district. We still have the high school in the middle. We have a north and a south elementary school. Keep the pre-K in Townsend. And we can also, we'll have enough space to keep the superintendent staff in another building, also giving us some revenue. Okay.
Hey, Ken, these are all great ideas, and they will absolutely be a good part of the discussion for long-term planning. But we do have
Better
a
believe it.
fairly full agenda today, so I don't mean to cut you off, but
Nope, that's
With
quite fine and dandy with me because I'm going to be leaving the meeting early anyway.
all right, sir.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Nope. You
Joe, any
appreciate
other-
leaving early? No.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Joe, any other hands before student reports? No, we're good. All right. Let's hear some reports.
Abby Hazelton, I'm here.
Hey, Abby.
I was very excited to go back in person last Monday. It was definitely exciting. Weird to get used to for sure, but I think overall, even with the hybrid model of going 2 days a week right now, that it's definitely really beneficial for all the staff and students to actually be together and in person. Was there anything you wanted to add, Ansley?
Yeah, I'm just so excited to be back. It feels like we didn't even miss anything. Like we didn't even skip a beat. We just got right back into it. It didn't even feel like a first day. Like it was like we already like dove into academics. All the teachers were happy and joyful, and it was just so great to finally be back again.
Oh, that's great. The fantastic reports. Any questions for our students?
I was just wondering, how does it feel to see your friends again?
Amazing.
That's good. It helps the mental well-being.
For sure. Any other questions? No? All right. Abby, Ansley, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that you're back at school. We've been looking forward to this for a long time. Appreciate your reports. All right, moving on to the annual meeting warning.
Just as a little pre, I sent all the board the revised warning after multiple conversations over the last week with our attorney. The law is silent on whether you can elect during a Zoom annual meeting or not, but our attorney highly recommends we do not do that, as most towns are choosing to do that. And so that's why I sent you a revised warning, which essentially makes Article 1 through 4 not done live at an annual meeting, but on a ballot. So just to point that out, as nothing in the body of the warning has changed, but Articles 1, 2, 3, and 4 are to be on a ballot, not to be elected live at a Zoom meeting the night prior. So just wanted to make sure that was clear for everybody.
Thanks, Bill. Joe, do you want to pull that up?
Sure. I also just admitted Laura.
Oh, great. Thank you.
I gotta find the last warning.
The right one.
And just a reminder for the board, what we'll need tonight is a motion to approve this warning and to allow the chair to sign the warning. And then what we'll do is we'll get the clerk, Anita, to sign the warning, and then we will have it ready for publication in the annual report, as well as to go into the newspaper.
Hi, excuse me, this is moderator Dave.
Hello, Dave.
So I've been very confused since the elementary schools stopped doing their thing. So from what I understand from Joe, there's going to be the annual meeting on March 23rd. That is basically going to be just an informational meeting. There will be no voting during that meeting.
Correct.
You've got it, Dave.
Okay. Okay.
But what we do need to do, Dave, is encourage people like you to make sure that you let your clerk know that you are interested in being the moderator, so that we can get you on the ballot for The moderator.
Yes. Okay. What do I do? Just call down there?
Yes, you have to sign a certification. No,
Okay.
all
Okay.
you have to do, you just attest that you would
Okay.
like to be on the ballot.
Okay, I'll stop down. And when is that vote? It's going to be a town hall at a certain date, I assume.
The vote will be on the 24th.
The next day.
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. My questions are answered.
Is there a deadline for the submission of the, statement of interest, Bill?
The latest is 20 days prior, so that'd be March 3rd, but we want to give them as much time as possible to print ballots and have them available for people that request early ballots. So after tonight's meeting, I'm encouraging people like Dave, our clerk and treasurer that are currently in those roles, or anybody who's interested, to get the word out that we would like them to contact their clerk and get their name on the ballot. So usually we just go and talk to people and encourage them to get on and participate and get nominated at annual meeting. But this time they have to do a certification through their clerk, which is literally just signing their name saying, please put me on the ballot. So we all, as board members and community members, anybody who's interested in serving as a clerk or treasurer for the West River School District, please go see your town clerk. And all of you very interested board members that know people that are interested in positions like these, please reach out to them and encourage them to get their name on the ballot as soon as possible, because that gives our clerks more time in which to print a ballot and have it available for absentee and early voting.
Thanks, Bill.
You've got a couple hands out, Ken and Dana, or no, just Dana.
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I was just wondering,
No,
is Trish's that large position up for grabs?
Yes, it is. I believe it is Article 9. Article 9. And if you remember, and maybe you don't remember, but when we first started West River, we had two
Article 10?
years. Is it
Yeah.
Article 10? Okay.
I'm like, oh, either I have the wrong ballot up or it's Article 10.
There were seats for 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years for the first time that they were voted for, so that things could be staggered. And then the second time they get elected, they're all 3 years.
Just to give you guys a heads up, Town of Jamaica is looking at a May 1st town meeting.
Thanks, Dan.
Ken's hand is up now, Al.
Oh, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, sorry about that. I took it down too fast. Anyway, I thought we only had 2 at-large positions. That's question number 1, and that's why we had them at 2 years apiece, not 3.
So the answer to question number 1 is you're correct. We do have 2 at large, but they are staggered so that they don't happen on the same year. And so Mike has one of the at-large positions.
Right. Okay. I got it. And the other thing was, Bill, thank you very much for making that public announcement on if anybody's interested in these positions, because it's, it was kind of bothering me that it's only like, what, 5 weeks away?
Yeah. Hey, we're it's a crazy time, and I understand the tightness of the timelines, but you guys are all the best sharers of information. So yes, I agree, Ken. It would have been greater to have longer period of time, but I'm fully confident in your communication abilities to your fellow citizens who might be of interest.
Thank you.
Agreed. Has everybody here? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll make a motion to adopt the warning as presented and authorize the chair to sign it on behalf of the board.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And discussion.
Yes, if the 2 motion makers do not want to make it.
I'm fine.
I'm good.
Good.
For itself.
Don't you think we should bring the whole thing up 1 article at a time and read it out before we, so the public knows what's going on, what we're making a motion on? Because to be
Well,
honest with, when you put that up and just leave it up on Article 1 or do the split page.
Okay, so everybody can see it, right?
Right.
First 4 articles, Al?
yep, sure, absolutely, we can run through. That's fine. I
Thank
think
you.
everybody here on the board has seen it, but yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. You want to go down to 5, Joe?
Sure.
Well, remember, these aren't even going to be on it, correct? Oh, no, these are the voting parts. Yes, go ahead.
Correct. Yeah. So, yeah,
All
most of
of
these
this
are
will
for
be
the-
on a paper ballot that people go in and pull anytime between, you know, in the
Right.
next couple weeks to March 24th, when it's actually the vote day. So every single one of these questions will be on the ballot. And, you know, Article 6, Article 6, Article 7, Article 8, those are the same as those are standard articles that we've had every year since
Yeah.
it's been in existence. So we're not changing anything here.
Yep, all boilerplate. You're right.
Yep.
Keegan, I see your hand.
Yeah, my question, Joe, do you mind scrolling back up to Article 8? I thought I've got a note and it's either from a select board meeting or from a school board meeting, but I thought there had been some discussion around moving the annual meeting to be on a Saturday. Would that have been like a select board meeting that would be my town specific? I'm just for clarity. Did we ever talk about that as a school board? Then it must be a Jamaica thing. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you.
It's quite all right. Joe, actually, if you want to just, yeah, never mind. Got it right there. So Article 9, obviously, this is the one that, the very important one. So what you can't see here is the unified tax rate, which actually at the end of the day ended up being, I believe, a penny and a half less than last year. Is that correct, Larry?
Yes, $1.96.5 came in. Last year was projected at $1.98, so a little less. Mhm.
So the yield came in a lot differently than we had anticipated. As we were leading up to this, we were thinking that the unified tax rate was going to be a lot higher. So this was a significant reduction to $1.96. So fantastic news, and certainly helps us that much more as we progress into our long-term planning. This really has bent the curve back into a decent position. And Lori has shown us year after year what the trajectory has looked like, and this really set us back right on a good path. All right, I think.
Oh, Al, if I could just point out Article 12.
Sure.
So Article 12, if you guys remember, we did a bond for repairing the boiler at Leland and Gray. And during the process of after that bond was approved, we were able through Lori Garland and Chris Medina's work to get some grant money that offset the cost of the implementation. And so the way that it works is because the public has already approved the entire bond, we need to ask the public to use the money that we saved from the original bond to expend on another capital project, because the money is already been loaned. And so our recommendation was to upgrade, which was necessary, the existing water system at Leland and Gray, which essentially allows us to get 2 capital projects done. It is important that everybody knows we are expending existing funds. We are not asking for additional funds. So if anybody asks, it's really important to know that on Article 12, that money has already been bonded. This is just, we saved money through some grants, and the appropriate process is to ask the public to be able to use that savings towards another capital project. So I just wanted to point that out. And since these are recorded and we have good minutes, I wanted to make sure I said it.
Thanks, Bill. Really appreciate that. Yeah, not new money. Yes.
You have
Very
a,
important distinction.
Ken has his hand up, Al.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, my question, there you go. My question is, are you sure we're legally able to do that?
I'm very sure because I spent a lot of money with our attorney to make sure that the wording was perfect and that everything was correctly done. So I appreciate you asking, Ken, but yes, I'm unbelievably confident this is exactly what needs to happen. That's why we're asking the public.
Okay, all right. I'm just, it just,
Ask.
it seems kind of out of left field to me that, okay, we can pay this bond up early. You know what I mean? And save on some interest. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we could use it over here. You know,
We
yeah.
can't pay the bond off early. We got all the money and we have a bond schedule that we are attached to. And it was for very specific capital projects at the Leland and Gray building. So
Right.
we have to use those funds towards capital projects at the Leland and Gray building because that is what the public voted on originally.
And if they vote, and out of curiosity, if they say, no, we don't want to fix the water supply, we want to fix the front steps. I don't
So
know.
if if this got voted down, then I would bring it back to the board and I'd say, here are the other projects that we could do.
And then it has to be voted on again by the public.
That is correct.
And the reason I'm bringing this up so the public knows that one way or another, we have to use the money at Leland and Gray since it's already been approved. So let's just get this water problem fixed.
There you go, Ken. I love it, man.
All right. Thank you.
Great PSA, Ken. Very nice. All right, so yeah, we're moving down to the informational hearing, which would be on Tuesday, March 23rd at 7 p.m. Also via Zoom. If you want to keep scrolling down, Joe, is that?
And then we just got
polling places. Yep, Brookline Town Hall, Jamaica Town Office, Newbrook Firehouse, Townsend Town Hall, and Wyndham Town Office. All right. Any other discussion?
I know just because this says that the votes will be brought for commingling, I know that we actually have the authority to not have the vote commingled and not cause that to happen under a directive from the Vermont Secretary of State from January 20th. So would this be because we're voting on that warning and we want to change it perhaps to not have the ballots be commingled, just let them be counted where they were cast and then transmitted to a central place? Would we make that motion now, you think?
Well,
since there's already a motion on the floor, I mean, I'm technicality here.
No. It's a really good question. So we need to warn the warrant. We have to do a motion to adopt the warning and allow the chair to sign. That's action one. And that stays in its one little narrow world. And then there's a separate motion of which Joe, as the vice chair, has been given very specific language for the board to consider from our attorney. And that's a completely separate thing. And I had to walk through with the attorney again today, but yes, you approve the warning as is, even though it says commingled. And then you make a separate one that allows us to not have to commingle. But it's a very specific thing that Joe would do, but this is separate from what we're doing right now.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, so is there any other discussion on this motion? No? All right.
Call the question.
Sounds good. Joe, do you mind stop sharing so we can see votes? Sorry.
There you go.
Excellent. Very good. All right, all those in, can everybody put their mic on, or not mic, their video on? Let's see. I think we've got everybody. All right, all those in favor, thumbs up. 9. I'm counting 9. Okay. Anybody nay? All right, motion carries. All right, Joe, on to the next.
Okay, do we want to do that now, or since we have both representatives, let them go? That's your call.
I was thinking this would just be, I don't think there's any discussion on this. I mean, we'll have
Okay.
discussion, but
All right, so I started it with, we've been given the authority by the Secretary of State, pursuant to the authority granted to the board by the January 20th, 2021 directive from the Vermont Secretary of State. I would move that the board determine that following the closing of the polls on March 24th, ballots will not be commingled and instead shall be counted by local election officials and transmitted to the clerk of the district, who will tabulate and report the final result of the votes.
do I have a second?
I'll second that, Ken.
Thanks, Ken. Any discussion? No?
I don't.
All right, great. All those in favor, thumbs up. All right, again, 9, yeah. All in favor, motion carries. Thank you. All right, as mentioned, I would like to skip now to our waiting study implementation, because we do have our 2 reps here, and either of you who wants to discuss. There you are, Laura. Laura, apparently you're the wizard on this. Carolyn's ceding to you.
I can give a little background, but Laura is the detail person. Laura, do you want me to kick it off with a little background? So many years ago, when Act 60 was passed, the people who created it basically came up with values for kids as students, what they were worth in terms of funding. And at that time, and this is before my time, so I'm not an expert about Act 60. I was there for Act 68. But they decided that elementary students were worth 1, high school kids were worth 1.25, and I'm not even sure we were doing pre-K, but when pre-K came in, it was they were worth 0.46. And what's kind of disturbing about that is that there should have been a weighting study done the following year or biennium just to determine if those weighting numbers were correct. Over the years, things have changed. High schoolers became worth, instead of 1.25, 1.13. And as I said, the pre-K kids were valued at 0.46. And so finally, after years of pushing on this, we were able to get the legislature to say yes to a weighting study. And what came out was pretty compelling. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura now, and she can give you some of the details, the really nitty gritty of this. So go for it, Laura. Thanks.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I miss seeing you, Carolyn.
Me too.
Especially at times like this, boy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much of a working understanding there is of how these weights work, but we have a constitutional requirement in Vermont to provide substantial equity of opportunity for students. And so Act 60, which Carolyn was referencing, was the response to a court case, a lost court case, the Brigham court case, which found that we were not doing that. And so that had to do with access to resources. We put in place a statewide grand list education property tax, as well as local spending decisions. And the way that the legislature determined that we would ensure equity is by per pupil spending. So no matter where you were across the state, your child would have access to the same amount of spending. And your taxpayers would pay the same amount on a 100. Somebody else will have to help me on that, but the property tax rate and the spending were equalized. So that presumes that every child can be educated for the same amount across the state and does not take into account differences in what it might cost. As Carolyn said, there were a few small differences that were put in. There was an assumption that it would cost more to educate a high school student. And I believe there was a weight for an added weight, slight weight for ELL and also for poverty. But this study that was done in last year, 2019, Christmas Eve, it was released, found that we had been dramatically underweighting students, and particularly students in poverty. Carolyn and I have been fighting for a long time for looking at how small schools and rural schools are evaluated. The poverty weight cuts across the entire state. It's small districts, large districts, rural districts, more densely populated districts. And so this report came back with recommendations for some pretty dramatic changes. This happened last year. We were beginning to gain some momentum. Al was kind enough to come and join us along with Doug Korb from Marlboro for a press conference that we had. It happened to be the same week that we ultimately ended up in a state of emergency for the pandemic. The situation was pretty clear. The legislature had asked for this study to determine if they were funding for differences, if they were providing for differences in the cost of education for students appropriately. The answer came back, having looked across the country and looking at, what costs should be, that we were not. The Secretary of Education at that time testified, it's compelling, you have a problem, it needs to be fixed. And so we started on that. With the pandemic, we have seen that inequities, wherever they exist, including here, have only gotten worse. As you all certainly know yourselves, everything is much harder to do now in Zoom land, and that includes legislating. And there's also an element of the mercy rule for our leadership last year in terms of just keeping us functioning and being able to provide bare services. We stopped really pushing hard for this study, but folks have been forewarned. There's now a coalition that is being assembled and organized by actually the Burlington School District, and that has members from across the state, again, in all sizes. They have hired a lobbyist to push for implementation of the weights in a bill that Carolyn and I have created and sponsored, H54. And the town of Dover has also hired a lobbyist to work on this issue as well. H54, as it's currently written, sits in the House Education Committee. The chair of House Education has taken some testimony, surprisingly to me, on this bill this year. The bill would suspend the excess spending penalty for this year only for all districts, for the budgets that we're going to vote on at our town meetings. And then it would begin a series of rolling in the weights. So we would roll in all of the weights with the exception of the poverty weight. The poverty weight would roll in over 3 years. So all of the weights except for the poverty weight would come in place next year. The poverty weight would start rolling in a third at a time next year. The poverty weight is a pretty dramatic increase. It's a 3 on top of your count, on top of your regular student count. So we will see some pretty big shifts in access to resources based on the poverty weight. And that is probably just about all you need to know about why this will be slow moving. because it's not expected that there will be necessarily additional resources, but that there will have to be an alignment within the system. And so districts that are overweighted, larger, wealthier districts with less needy students will start to feel a financial burden, and districts with the neediest students will start to have access to more resources. This is a long time coming, a very long time coming. So in addition to this rolling in of the weights, we would have a rolling in of a mitigation effect for overweighted districts. And that's because, as I said, we will start to see pressure on the less needy districts to reduce their spending or increase their taxes. And that could be dramatic. When Act 60 rolled in, I believe my town had a 40% increase in 1 year. And the legislature at that time did put in place some mitigation to kind of roll that out and not create as much, to lessen the shocks in the system. So no excess spend this year. All of the weights next year, with the exception of poverty, roll that in over 3 years, mitigate the tax effect for districts that have a tax increase over 20% over 3 years. We would do that. The cost of that is less than $5 million. It's a high level figure that JFO has come up with. And in addition, the chair of Ways and Means has continued to beat a drum about, concern that opening up this additional capacity for the neediest students, there's a concern that districts may choose to not get it to their students. They may choose to use it for taxes. So on the one hand, I have found that incredibly offensive and insulting because our overweighted districts are already making those choices. Nonetheless, I think her persistence in this concern, and it's a shared concern, has been helpful. And so in the bill, we have added a number of oversight measures. So one is having the Appropriations, Finance, and Ways and Means Committee in both the House and Senate meet twice a year to hear from school boards, superintendents, principals, the public, teachers, about how the weights being shifted, how they're corrected, how that is playing out. And in addition, requiring school districts to report on their education quality standards reporting what the difference is in their decisions based on the shift in weights. So for an overweighted district, we might see that the reporting shows that they're cutting some spending. We might expect to see that, or their taxes are going up. For an underweighted district, we would hope to see an increase in educational spending. Or for those that have been suffering with excess spending as they've been trying to maintain a quality program, we might see some tax relief, actually. In addition to that, I'm trying to think if I have anything else. I have two other, just to be really candid, I won't be really candid because this is recorded. So we've been fighting for this for a long time. And so there's a lot of harm that has been done to a lot of students and to a lot of taxpayers. And so there are two other elements in the bill that I don't expect to pass that would ask for a quantifying of the harm that has been done to 2 decades worth of students and 2 decades worth of taxpayers. Again, I want to underscore that fact for my colleagues in the legislature who may not understand the size of this problem and the gravity of the issue, but I don't necessarily expect those to pass. And I think that is it. We have tripartisan and nonpartisan sponsorship of the bill. We are being told today there was a press conference, which went fairly well. I know it's been on WCAX this morning. I expect to see a number of other stories on this. We are hearing that the Senate is likely to have a joint hearing with Senate Finance and Senate Education, I believe early next week. And I'm hearing that the desire now with legislative leadership is for the Senate to take the lead on this bill or on moving the weights, and then for the House to follow through. The Senate will act on S13, which is a different bill. And that bill is Senator Baruth's bill, and it asks for the creation of a plan, an implementation plan to put the weights in place. Our bill is an implementation of the weights. I think that's it. That's probably a lot, but.
Well, thank you, Laura. That was fantastic. When do you expect action on H54?
When do we expect action on H54? I expect that this is going to be a slog throughout the entire session now. We have heard from the AOE that they are completely overwhelmed with dealing with the pandemic. There are and I will tell you that our joint fiscal office, which will be tasked with helping to model this, as well as the AOE in terms of what are the mechanisms for districts to follow and how do we answer questions. We're going to have some staffing capacities. So this is going to be a fight to get this in place this year. But we are going to fight to get it in place this year. And we will get something done this year. Movement on the weights. For me, a very high priority going alongside this is that excess spending, relief from the excess spending. And I've been really clear with the speaker on that we have to, at a minimum, we have to see that this year. The legislature asked for an analysis as to whether or not we are spending enough. And we've been told that we are not, that we are dramatically underfunding our neediest students, and the excess spending is penalizing us for trying to provide resources for those students. So if for some reason we don't address the excess spending penalty this year, it is my hope that we will see districts and parents going to court. Now, our courts also are not functioning right now very well. So I would say that it's really important for you all to share with House and Senate Ed, the Ways and Means and Finance Committees, our delegation, your senators and House members, personal stories, how this is affecting your kids, your taxpayers, your districts. Carolyn has her hand up.
Carolyn.
Thanks. And the one thing I would add here is that one of the things I think we have going for us is that it's not just the rural small towns that are being affected in a negative way. It's towns like Burlington, Winooski, where they have huge numbers of children with English as a second language and poverty. And so if we get the message across, and I think a good way, I think that there's going to be a lot of support for this, and that's my hope.
Yeah, there's not really opposition so much as like, oh, we don't, this is going to be hard to implement, which it isn't. It's just going to be painful to implement, and it's new, and there's a lot of big things going on. So.
Yeah, and we'll go to questions, but Lori, I just wanted to call on you for a second since you called out excess spending. Lori, if you could, just so everybody kind of understands, what does that mean? What would that mean in terms of dollars and cents if we were to have the excess spending go away?
16 cents on the tax rate. Your tax rate would be 16 cents less because of, if the excess spending penalty was not in place. You would still have a high cost per student, 22,000, but you wouldn't be double taxed on $1,600 or almost $1,700.
Wow, that's huge. Thanks, Lori. I knew you'd have the answer right away. All right, Joe, are there any other questions out there?
None that I see.
I actually have a question while we have Lori and Bill and you here. So in terms of poverty for this district, when we look at the statewide average, is this district above or below in terms of poverty?
We're above.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe every town would see some relief.
I think also the density, the population density for some of our towns would also be a plus for us.
So, well, thank you very much for all of this information. And we will be there, right there with you. We've already, as we'll talk later on about the communications committee, our COMCOM, they will be very active in helping people to understand how important this is, talking to all of the legislators, all of the, we have all of the, Mike did a great job of getting that out. Mike, why don't you go ahead and talk about what you did?
Sure. I helped to draft the email that is now up. Well, it's up on the website now, but it went out to some people and through the COMCOM, and just basically telling people to support, to reach out to their representatives and ask them to support S13, and how important it is to a district like ours. And then we gave them a sample email they could use if they were so inclined.
And then Keegan, you picked it up from there, right?
Did, and we had Suzanne post it on our social platforms as well as in our website. So the word is out and shared in as many places as we currently have networks set up.
And then I got it out on Front Porch Forum too.
So we're there with you, fighting the fight.
Thanks, guys. It'll be really helpful.
It's incredibly important to us.
Us too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for restoring equity or attempting to restore equity in our educational finance. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We got a little ways to go. I would say note the 23rd for a hearing. So we may call on you for some folks to testify.
Sounds good. We'll be there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank
All right. Well, that was fantastic. They are really fighting the good fight up there. And Mike and Keegan, thanks for spreading the word and letting everybody know how they can spread the word. So thank you. Appreciate
Happy
it.
to do it.
Thanks. All right. So let's circle back to school choice Affirm.
So we do this we're supposed to do it at the end of every January. And so that's why it says Affirm. But this is the high school choice agreement. Bob produced a very nice one-pager. We are recommending we don't change anything than what we approved last year, but Bob is much more versed in this. So Bob, if you want to, flesh anything out for the board, but what we're looking for is just a motion to accept the recommendation that we've put forward in writing for you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So there's really one thing that I'm recommending, and that has to do with setting a capacity. As a board, you're not required by law to set a transfer limit, which is the outgoing number, but you are required to define an incoming number, which is the capacity. And so I really just want to tell you that each year we get a couple in, we get a couple out, typically from Wyndham Northeast in, and typically headed into Wyndham Southeast out. But that's really it. It typically balances out. There was one year, a few years ago, where there was more out than in, but in recent 3 or 4 years, it's been pretty even in and out. And so really it's just it's a checkbox for you guys to do the capacity and set that capacity. My recommendation, as you can see, is we set it at 20. There's no way we're going to have 20 kids coming in, but you got to set it at something. So that's my recommendation. It's an annual thing you have to do.
Thanks, Bob. I'll entertain that motion.
So moved, Ken McFadden.
Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Keegan. Any discussion?
Shoot big, go for the 20. I'm for it.
I like the high bar.
I just have some questions around the recruitment strategy for how are you going to attract those available seats? Do you typically visit area middle schools? Like what kind of strategies are you hoping to implement to have new students join?
Sure, good question. So we do typically during a normal year, we do a recruitment night at Floodbrook, which is the catchment area over more towards Londonderry. And sometimes, and we get a kid every other third year, something like that from Floodbrook. Usually kids that are more on the Rawsonville side that can catch a bus and make it our way. And they do a fair every year for 8th grade parents to come to. So we usually present at that and have since I've been here. Typically in the past, there's also a Dover information night coming into 7th grade. So that's really for 6th grade parents there. So we typically do that night as well, which isn't really about high school choice, but it gets them in as the tuition students in 7th and 8th. And then once you have them linked, then you can again get them in for the high school side of things as well through tuition. The other group that we typically get are kids from Athens and Grafton. Those kids again come to us oftentimes in middle school as a tuition student because they don't have a designated middle school. So they would come to us again in 7th and 8th grade, and then we hope to keep them as often as the case. They stay with us through high school as well. We did have 2 kids this year because of the pandemic from that area go to Bells Falls because they were open. Both those students are actually returning to us this coming year because we will also again be open. So we're pretty excited about that. Those students returning to us. So as far as recruitment goes, we also go to Marlboro, but again, those are again tuition students, not school choice students. So I don't know if that answers everything you're looking for, but that's the recruitment that we do typically.
Thank you.
And I did send a letter to all students in Marlboro and Dover and Wardsboro in the fall to just invite them to consider Leland and Gray for next year in whatever grade they happen to be going into.
That's great. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. Any other questions? Discussion? All right. All those in favor, thumbs up. Video if you can. 1, 2, 3. I got Lindsay a thumb. All right, got it.
I was going to say, can you see Lindsay's thumb?
I saw Lindsay's. Yeah. All right, here we go. 9-0 again. Thank you. Appreciate it. Motion carries. All right, so we are skipping over unpaid leave request, no longer ours. And let's see, sign contracts. I think there is one contract, and
Yes. So
I'm gonna have to recuse myself.
yes, normally we would ask the school board chair to receive permission from the board to sign this contract. In this case, the chair is going to need to recuse themselves. That would move to the vice chair. So this is a contract. Occasionally in the middle of the year, a teacher will achieve a different level of education, which requires a contract adjustment per our contract. And this year we have one. And so I'm asking the board to allow Vice Chair Joe Winrick to sign this contract that is in your board packet. It's for Tammy Clausen. And that is why Vice Chair is being asked to be able to sign this.
She worked very hard on that. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I was going to say it, but go ahead. You got it.
Discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Actually, I'll
Yeah.
Well, we know you're in favor, Al.
Yes. All right, 8 in
Lindsay's got her-
favor and 1 abstain. Thank you. All right, on to some really exciting stuff. Communications with our public regarding the budget vote. Tell us what you have for plans and ideas.
So the communications committee met towards the end of January, and we kind of brainstormed some different strategies and platforms that we might consider leveraging to get the word out to our constituents about the budget, what it looks like this year, and what it all means. On our list of suggestions, one has already been done. We wanted to update the infographic with the newest data that reflects the board's decision to pull $300,000 from the reserve fund and the elimination of an administrative position or an administration position, excuse me. We also suggested that we only put in the unified tax rate as opposed to like what the individual tax rate numbers would be based on the town, considering that every town gets the 5% hold harmless piece. And just to kind of streamline communication and avoid confusion or hurt feelings, depending upon the depth of knowledge someone has with how that tax rate can fluctuate from town to town. I believe that Suzanne has already pulled that off and had the numbers reviewed by both Bill and Lori. And I think it's also been shared with the leadership team of this board. We had also requested that we would like the leadership team to write an op-ed piece for the Common that's related to the budget process and the current ask of our communities no later than March 1st. I know that date is coming up, but I had sent in an email request just to kind of forewarn you back in January. So hopefully it's been mulled over at least.
Plenty of time, Keegan.
We also suggested hosting a few open forums or informational sessions, kind of like coffee talks that could be held over Zoom, where we would have board representation, leadership representation, but less than a quorum because we know how open meeting law works. But just to kind of have a general awareness of what kind of questions might there be, or what types of dialogue our community members would like to have for more specific or clarifying points of concern. Along those same lines, we were hoping to kind of collect some questions from our communities in the form of like a Google form. And chances are if one person has a question about how the tax rate is calculated or what the implications are for the CARES funding that we received this year, the building and maintenance business that we had going on earlier, we assume people have questions or they would like to talk further about what some of those points may be. And it would be helpful if we were to collect some of those questions ahead of time. That way we could streamline maybe like a frequently asked question, document where folks could easily access additional information, or just to kind of front load and hear from our communities what are their most pressing issues and concerns, so that we can tailor our conversations more around the needs of our people. So handful of fun tasks, and we were also hoping that with the updated website and our new communications liaison, giving some time to Suzanne to kind of walk through what she's done with the website and how well she's been able to manage our social platforms. She's really done a phenomenal job, and I could not be more pleased with her willingness and stick-to-itiveness to get our words out for us.
Thank you, Suzanne. Those are some great ideas, Keegan. I appreciate all the thought that you've put into this and the plans. So on the gathering frequently asked questions from folks, how did you plan on doing that?
Lori's hand is up now.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead and answer that, Keegan, then we'll go to Lori.
Very good. The hope would be that we could create just like a general open Google form, post it so that folks could see like, here's a space to ask some questions, and it would be a single, text entry. That way they can type in their question. It would go to a common spreadsheet that would be shared with communications team members as well as board members and board leadership, just so folks are all able to see what are the questions that people are having. And then we could have an informal meeting as a communications team to kind of sort through some of those questions and kind of categorize them. That way, everyone is more prepared with responses or whatever research needs to be done so that we can provide accurate information when we have our coffee talks or open forum experiences.
Gotcha.
Go
Great.
for it. Google form.
Thanks, Keegan. Go ahead, Lori.
Keegan, that's great. And I just wanted to ask a couple of clarifying questions. One, Al asked it already, because I'm wondering if there are questions that come through about the tax rate and that type of thing. You know, is there a way that they would come to our office? So that's, you know, one question, or through the ComCom team to my office, the SU. The other point of clarification that I wanted to just check in, I thought I heard you say that you decided to put only the unified tax rate on the website and not the individual towns. Is that what you said? Did I hear that right?
Yes, we were thinking that back when we had our communications team meeting back in January, that it might be helpful just to have the unified tax rate. That way, the communities that would have a different rate other than like that baseline, that information, once we had the yield, once all of that other information had shaken loose, we can update it at that time. But I was under the impression back in the end of January, we were not quite 100% sure what that final tax rate was going to be. And I would rather err on the side of caution and say like this was the unified tax rate as opposed to it's this for this particular town, maybe depending upon CLA.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we are pretty close at this point in time. You know, it's always an estimate up until it shows up on your tax bill. But we are pretty close. I will point out that with the increase in the yield, which was basically a 5.7% increase from the first yield that we had, that, you know, they're basically knocks out all of the hold harmless, so that everybody is on a level playing field at this point. And so the only difference at this point in time on that $1.96 tax rate will be the CLA. So if at any point you do want to put that on the website, I'm happy to provide that information for you.
That's great, Lori. Thank you so much. I'll connect with Suzanne and you guys can work out those finer details. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Keegan, just had a thought about the Google sheet, and maybe there's some other people who are smarter than me about potential security issues. I was just thinking access. I'm wondering if maybe like a Survey Monkey or something like that might be easier to gather information. Bill, I don't know if you had more experience with that or.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with Survey Monkey. So if you wanted that to happen, that would require a learning curve on my end. But I would assume that the Google form would be fine because all we're doing is collecting questions. We're not collecting like specific information from people. But I'm not familiar with your tech security.
I'm confident that your communication liaison will know an appropriate path in which to accomplish the task you're looking for. I have great confidence in her abilities. So
enough said. Great. That sounds like an awesome plan. Any other questions for the ComCom? Anything, Joe?
Nothing, no hands.
No? All right. Thank you very much. Look forward to a great 6 weeks until we have that vote. Thanks a lot. All right, moving on to HVAC workflow update.
So Al, I just want to commend you that you are 1 minute off the expected schedule. really well done. I'll try to help you continue on that path. I've prepared a written report, or I didn't prepare a written report. Greg Frost, our new director of operations, has produced a written report for you all. It's in your packet. Just a couple highlights from that. The Leland and Gray entire system is now digitized. It can be operated from, all their controls are operated from a laptop or a phone, which is really nice. And the lift is coming on Wednesday in 2 days to work on the gym. So that is very exciting. We thought it wasn't going to come until the week of break, but it's actually going to be there Wednesday at 8 a.m., I believe, to start that work. And so we're excited to get a lift in and get a look at the activity room, the library, and the gym, so we can get those rooms checked, fixed, tested, and eventually open for our students. But Bob may have some greater detail he might want to add.
Yeah, actually, just to, sorry, I hate to correct my boss, but library is already open, so you don't have to worry about that.
That's even better.
So as we open this past week, and I'm going to talk more about this in the principal report, but attached to the principal report is the airflow stuff on Leland and Gray. And so you can see on that, if you want to go into that document, that there are several spaces in our building that are still not up to snuff. There are some units that are not functioning correctly or not generating any airflow whatsoever. So I met with Greg Frost this morning, and he is on it. So there are the four new science rooms from 1996. We're all on 1 or 2 handlers on the roof. Those are not functioning currently. The activity room, the gym, and then there's 2 unit ventilators that have failed in recent months, one on A level and one in the music room, rendering those 2 spaces inoperable at this point. But we were able to bring in students live anyways, as you heard from the student reports, by shuffling some spaces around as well. So that the numbers are all in there. You can see based on the occupancy to get the ASHRAE standards. And the good news is really, which is pretty amazing, is that the rooms that actually were functioning and passing are well above the ASHRAE standards. A couple 100%, some certain rooms. So that really pretty exciting news that those spaces were had pretty significant flow for the numbers that we were looking at. But as we pointed out, there are still some spaces to look at, and the main gym, the activity room, with the 2 big common areas, and then 6 classrooms, including the music room, still remain to be repaired.
And I will say Bob is being humble when he said that there was some moving around of rooms. There was about 72 hours where the entire Leland and Gray staff was unbelievably flexible in moving stuff and technology and preparing rooms and thinking about how they were going to use different rooms at different times. It was a pretty amazing, just the teamwork and the care and the want to get ready for the students was pretty amazing, that 72 hours before the first day of school. So I give a lot of credit to Bob and Johanna and their team for really putting the kids at the center and doing everything they possibly could to make sure it happened.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say, echo that with the teachers, particularly the custodial staff that shuffle things around. We heard on Tuesday or Wednesday, the week before we opened, one set of facts around which rooms we could use. And then they came back on Thursday and did some additional work to get some other rooms up and running. So Friday, we had to shift the whole thing around again to reopen on Monday. So the teachers were awesome in their flexibility and how they were able to get rooms set up and running, ready to go. And again, as Bill pointed out, their willingness to just like go with the flow, no pun intended, to get up and running and have those kids there was truly a incredible team effort. So kudos to them.
Great job. So
Hands out.
Oh, okay, I'll just ask one
Lori
question.
and Dana.
All right. So the rooms that had no airflow, what's the prognosis on those and how long until those will be up and running?
So there's the two of the rooms that have regular unit ventilators, the music room and one on A level, both have parts ordered for the repair on those, and then we'll test those once those are set, and then we'll find out what's usable at that point. We're waiting on what the state releases as its music guidance. We've been told last Friday they're going to release new music guidance that has not been released yet. Looking at the national scene, the airflow, the number of exchanges per hour that we had in the music room when the system was operating before it froze up on us would not meet those national standards. So even if the music room is repaired, we don't know whether we'll actually be able to do music in the music room, but we'll figure that out. The four science rooms, as we call them, 2 on A and 2 on B that are above each other, have ceiling ventilators. We don't know and I'm not sure what the status on those are. I know that they're on the radar for Greg. The gym, as Bill pointed out, we're bringing the lift in, and those guys will be here. And we hope to have that functioning by the end of vacation week, so that we can actually host some basketball games, as that's another thing we'll talk about later on when I do my report. But so those spaces. And then the activity room, I don't know. I honestly don't know where we stand on that one. We'll wait to see what Alliance says when they come in and meet with Greg. But we've been able to do lunch in classrooms as well to take deal with the activity room piece. So we're making it through.
Thanks, Bob. Joe, I apologize. Who are the hands?
Lori and then Dana.
I'm
Lori.
okay. I'm gonna get the sports report from Bob later. That's what my question was.
Lori?
I just wanted to add to the good news. It was confirmed on Friday in a meeting I was in that the CARES Act had about $15 million left, and it was basically awarded to Efficiency Vermont to continue the work. I don't know if you've read about that or not, but it's, we have been right in there in the getting our name in first and foremost for West River and for any other districts that need to have completed work. So that was good news.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, and that's good through the end of the year, correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's fantastic. Great job. All right, any other questions?
No more hands out.
All right. Moving on to approved minutes of January 19th, 2021. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second? Thanks, Keegan. All those in favor, thumbs up. Thank you, Lindsay. I see you. Unanimous, passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to the principal's reports. Let's start with you, Bob.
Why not? All right, so you have my report, and then I don't want to read the whole thing for you, but I do want to say a couple things about the reopening. It's incredibly cool to have kids back in the building, as the girls mentioned earlier, both for them and for us. I will say that there's a lot of challenges to this. I mean, there's the logistical stuff, obviously, which to get us open and ready with the building and rooms and all that kind of stuff. That's one thing, and screening processes. But what I'm referring to is sort of the re-engagement of kids, and it's just something I want you guys to be thinking about. And it's something that actually I testified at Senate Ed about last week. And VPR interviewed me today about it after hearing my testimony. The challenges are many, and I don't know if we faced additional challenges more so than other places that reopened in the fall. Maybe Keegan would have some thoughts on this too, because she had kids back in the fall in Windsor. But kids have been really isolated for 11 months, and whether or not they've engaged in the work is certainly one thing and one element of that life. But as they have been isolated, particularly in a very rural area, with very little contact with their peers, reintegration is a process. And what we've seen is that there's a lot more anxiety than we anticipated from kids. And it isn't necessarily about getting sick. It's really about engaging with their peers and having this many people, which is ironic because we're not a very big school, but this many people in one place, and they just haven't experienced that in so long. And so our teachers are really, really working hard to reintegrate kids, both in the academic sense and try to recover whatever we can recover from academic stuff. But really, more importantly, it's the social emotional side of things. And I just want to make sure that as a board, you guys are aware of that piece, and understand that having daily advisories to re-engage kids, and there's a lot more to it than just putting them in a room and teaching them math, I guess. And I just want to make sure you guys were thoughtful around that process, and have patience as we go into this, because I think it's going to be a little bit more challenging than we thought it would be. And maybe because the older kids are approach it differently than some of the younger kids might, or maybe it's because of how long it's been, a combination of things. But it's a really interesting challenge. And so we're committed to hitting it head on and figuring out how to do it and make the best of it for our kids. But it's it's just going to be interesting as we see how that plays out. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, and know that the staff is aware of this and thoughtful about it, and developing their thinking around instructional pedagogy around that, and then trying to embrace that. So just so you know.
Oh, Bob, could you just mention the meeting that you and Craig had on your own volition, kind of reaching out?
Sure.
It matches what you're talking about.
Yeah, so Craig and I met with local, regional local members, leadership within DCF and HCRS, our mental health agency, just to talk about sort of that. And everybody uses the word recovery. It's not my favorite word, but that's what we're using these days, to really talk about how we can do that as a team approach. And one of the things that we want to emphasize is that this isn't something the schools can take on and solve on their own. You guys know this, but schools do way more than schools did 20 years ago. And we talk about this every time whenever there's a budget crunch about how to, all the things that schools do. So we were trying to figure out how to align our efforts with those agencies to make sure that our families, kids, everybody had access to mental health supports, family education, whatever. And so we have a few initiatives that are coming out of that, and working collaboratively with those groups, and how that's coordinated with our counseling and nurses group throughout our district. But yeah, so that was something that Craig and I met with those guys last week, I guess it was, to try to get that conversation started about what recovery looks like. And then the last point I just want to leave you with, and this was an emphasis of the testimony that a bunch of us gave last week. And it will be the focus of this, hopefully the focus of this story with VPR, is that this is not something that's going to be resolved over the summer. All right. This is not even something really that's going to be resolved in the fall. This is going to be at minimum a multi-year approach, and thinking about how we do this. And none of us were trained for this and thinking about it in this way. And so I just want to have you guys have that on the radar. This is not going to be we can't throw a little bit of money at it in the fall and think, yeah, we're set. This is good. We've solved it. This is going to be a multi-year problem that we're going to have to continually address with all age groups, pre-K to 12. So that's my pitch. And you can read more in my report, as well as the building stuff attached to the bottom, which I've already kind of done over for you guys.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, we've never been here before, at least not in 100 years. So yeah. All right, any questions? I know Dana had a question. Anybody else have questions?
Lindsay has her hand up as well.
All right, who had it first?
Lindsay.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I just wanted to tell Bob and Craig and everybody, thank you for being proactive and just really mindful of how big of a deal it really is. And as a parent, I just really am thankful that we have you all. You guys are great. So thanks.
Thanks, Lindsay. Go ahead, Dana.
I was just gonna ask Bob, how's the sports going? That's bringing the kids back.
Right. So the sports world is complicated right now, and I think Marty is here, right? Yep, Marty's still here. I'm hoping to have Marty talk a little bit about the challenges that we have faced. I'm happy to answer any questions after he's done and about it, because I've been involved at the state level with the Restart Committee. So I've seen it kind of at the 30,000 foot level, but Marty is dealing with it like on the ground as far as what it looks like for him, for our kids, and our interaction with other schools. So if it pleases the board, I'd love to have Marty be able to speak to a little bit about what's happening in the sports world right now. And then we can talk a little more about where it's leading us.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, go ahead, Marty.
Thanks, Bob. How's everybody doing? I'll tell you what's happening in the sports world. We're like 2-3 weeks away from spring training, and the Yankees are getting ready. So that's what's going on in the sports world. So, but no.
Did you want me to throw him out as host?
Mute him.
I figured.
Mute him at least.
The sports world is just like any other world right now. It's dealing with changes by the minute, changes by the hour, changes by the day, changes by the week. We're fortunate enough to be able to get up and running our basketball season. We've been practicing for almost 5 weeks now without a gymnasium, which makes things very difficult, not only from a scheduling standpoint, but from a level playing field standpoint for our teams. We still have yet to been able to practice on a regulation size basketball court to prepare our high school teams or middle school teams who are now both engaged in playing games. But yet we were very fortunate to be able to use Jamaica's facility, and we're using the Dutton now, which is, just only we're 24 more feet closer to reality, as I like to say to our coaches. We're getting there. But as positive as we try to make it for the kids and what we're trying to offer them with practices and games, from my side of it, it's every day it's a plethora of emails and phone calls of things changing constantly based on what other schools are going through or might have a COVID case or potential COVID case, which cancels a game or postpones a game and then moves another game. And it's a lot of changing for families, for kids, schedules, the bus company. It's forever changing. And I give you an example. So on average, we're getting about 10, 15 emails a day from teams across the state that lose games because other schools have had a COVID contact, COVID case, and they have to shut down for 7, 10, 14 days, whatever it reads for them. But just today, the example today, we had some middle school teams play their first games on Saturday at a school local to us. And the following day, there was a potential of a COVID contact, not related to the basketball game, but related to the school that we played against. So within the 7 hours we were inside a school, we were supposed to play that school again this Wednesday. Those games went from being canceled to still having a practice for us on the day we were supposed to play the game to now all the tests came back negative and let's try to play the game again. And can we get that out to the parents as soon as possible? That sounds all great until you reverse the roles and put yourself on the parent side where you just heard that the game was canceled. You made the corrections you need to make or the adjustments you need to make because the game was canceled. And now a couple hours later, you just got another email saying the games are back on. Right? So now that's kind of what we're up against in the athletic world. I've had meetings with Bob about this. I'm all for giving our kids everything and anything we can for athletics. But the domino effect of these constant changes can be a lot on families. It really, really can. And it gets to a point where I've talked to Bob, like, when is it too much? When is the ultimate decision that we're better off controlling what we can control. And unfortunately, what we can control is we can control practices at our facility with our kids, keeping them safe Monday through Friday. That I feel confident we can control. I'm not so sure we can control the other stuff. Now, I'm not saying I don't want to play games, because if anybody knows me, I want to play games every day, not every day. And I want to win every day. Or I want kids to have the opportunity to get better every day. As our basketball coach for the girls varsity says, win the day. I think it's one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard, is win the day. If we win the day, we were successful. So that's what I'm saying. But it's a grind. It's a grind on kids. It's a grind on us. It's a grind on families. And it's just one more thing added to their plate that makes things more difficult in the day-to-day stuff that we're dealing with today. So that's athletics.
Yeah, let me add a little bit to that. And thank you, Marty. That was very well done. The state, when they started up sports a week ago, they left it in, they were able to clear us to play games. And they said, if schools don't want to do it, that's in their hands to shut it down, thus effectively making school administrators or boards the bad guys in the scenario if we had to go to that route, which was not something I enjoyed having thrust upon us. But as Marty says, we want kids to play as much as we can. So we're going to continue to roll forward with the game schedule the best that we can. But we want you guys to just be in the loop that, as he describes, this is happening across the state at every level. The new CDC guidelines came out and talked about indoor sports specifically being not ideal. And I can tell you, being on the inside of that committee, there's a lot of hesitation about even rolling out live games for indoor sports as well. So there's really a lot of moving targets here, but we want to keep it open to the kids as best we can. We just want you guys to know that at some point that may end, and it may end with our first case, our first positive that changes the dynamic of these decisions. And we just wanted you guys to know that there's a possibility that we could reach that point at some point soon. And Bill has continued to monitor those discussions with us and with Jorda, our COVID coordinator, and we're confident that between the four of us that we'll make a decision that's going to be, in the best interest of kids' safety. But we understand what's at stake, and we understand that a lot of families want it to continue regardless. And we're going to do the best we can. But I wanted you guys to sort of be in the loop around what the on the ground struggles are, as you hear from the public.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Marty.
Yeah, Al, can I just add one more thing to that last piece, just to give kudos to the administration for sure for supporting us, but our kids have been awesome when it comes to the guidelines and take it very serious and understand the implications that it can have. So at our practices and at our first games, they were so rehearsed in what needed to be done just to pull the games off. I just was extremely proud in what they did and the job that our coaches have done to make sure they understand how important it is to do it the right way to pull this type of stuff off. So I just, I don't know. I'm guessing our kids aren't listening right now, but maybe if their parents are in the communities, I'm just really proud of them. They represent Leland and Gray in the right way. We went over and played at another gymnasium, and I was really proud at the end that, the athletic director was like, you know what? Your kids did it right. And, that means a lot to me, and it should mean a lot to the people that are part of Leland and Gray in the community, because I know I'm proud of them. I really am. So
representing.
Yeah. Rebel Nation at its finest, baby.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
Any other questions, Joe?
No, sir.
All right. Let's move on to Craig.
How's it going, everybody? Yeah, so we've been back in school for just under a month, and having everybody back has just been delightful, and that's really an understatement. But I want to take a time to give thanks to parents and the community, and for being almost out of school for a year. we sort of had this, relationship and commitment from the parents to provide an education for their kids that they weren't necessarily probably enthusiastic about at first. And, coming back into school and getting the kids back in the classroom, you can just tell the dedication that the parents had and how much caring they had with their kids and the constant communication that they've had with their teachers, with myself, with our superstar admin assistant, Heidi Russ, just to coordinate all that. But like, it was a partnership, and we're happy to have everybody back. And with the exception of 9 families who are staying out for COVID safety reasons, we have 92% of our people back, and it's great to have. But I just want to just continue to thank parents for all the support that they gave their kids and the social emotional sort of coaching that they gave them to be ready to come back into school. And I greet everybody in the morning and I say goodbye in the afternoon as I have cars slowly pull through the one way. But the smiles on the face of the kids and the parents certainly make it all worthwhile. And we're just rolling, and we never stopped focusing on the education, and we never stopped focusing on how kids were always coming first. And so they're back, we're happy, and it's all going really well. And we're navigating all the little intricacies of COVID, Valentine's Day COVID special stuff, and bus dismissals and bus pickups and all the other fun stuff. So I just want to say thanks to everybody. It's really been great.
Thanks, Greg. And any questions?
Nope.
All right. Really appreciate it. All right, Pam.
I won't take up a lot of your time. You see the report that I did send. I did want to highlight a couple things that during the time that Leland and Greg was not able to welcome students, we did have a few attending at Jamaica Village School. So we were able to accommodate some particular learning needs with kids. We also were invited a fair number of students to come in to do their benchmark testing, and parents dropped them off and brought them in, and we were able to do that, as well as host the basketball with minimal intrusion in anything. And so we were appreciated being able to use one of the schools that was open. As I said, our winter benchmarks have been completed for Jamaica Village School. Our semester 1 report cards went home, which included this year a fairly lengthy narrative, individual narrative for each student. And I did coach the teachers in how to write that in a very descriptive rather than evaluative way. So hopefully that has changed the way in which those narratives are communicated. And just today, I received word that about 50 books were being delivered at the very end of the day. Hopefully they made it through the snow or ice or whatever, from the Children's Literacy Foundation to both Jamaica Village School and Jamaica Memorial Library through a grant that we collaborated with. So those books should be delivered and distributed to the children within the next, I don't know, week or so. I think those are the only things I did want to highlight. I do want to remind you that on Wednesdays, I personally send out to each family a learning prompt for the kiddos, and we post it in the Google Classroom as well, and they respond back to me to count for their attendance. So there's an academic component of Wednesday as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Pam.
No questions here either.
Thanks, Joe. Pam, be careful in that ice.
I decided that that's my Vermont ice. We've taken care of it. We're done. It's good.
Good. All right, and next up, we have Scotty Tabachnik, otherwise known as the sports broadcaster for Dummerston versus Leland and Gray.
I did get to, I was the only parent that was allowed to be at that game, which was super fun to watch the kids compete and watch them. They just had a blast. Everyone had a blast. It was really nice to be in a crowd. It was a small crowd, but it was very fun. So as far as my school goes, I'd like to highlight, first of all, Miss Bostrom She planned and executed a K-2 virtual field trip to the Billings farm. And I popped my head in a few times just to watch with the kids, and they were totally glued, you know. And of course, Billings Farm has great staff, so it was really cool. I want to say that, you know, it's a yearly thing. And one of the things that's cool, my staff is really focused on keeping things kind of normal when they can. And Mr. Gregg and his fourth graders are preparing. They're going to get started with their brook trout experiment that we do every year, where he raises them from row in the classroom, and then he takes them down to Grassy Brook. We all trudge down into the brook, and we all let these little tiny fingerlings go. That's going to be really super fun. I also want to say that my staff, it was amazing. We ran with Jamaica staff. Pam and I ran a implicit bias training over the past few days, or I'm sorry, over the past few months. We did 2 episodes. It was incredible. And I love working with these people. It was really great, really interesting stuff that we encountered, and really thoughtful and thought-provoking. This week, I'm super excited. This Wednesday, we're doing our benchmark data meetings, and I'm really excited because our special ed director and our curriculum coordinator are coming, Jen McCusick and Stephanie Betty Hancock, which is this great step towards better coordinating our MTSS. I want to say thank you to Miss Chelsea Johns, who recently stepped up. She was our kindergarten para, and she's a licensed teacher, and she became our 2nd grade long-term sub. Miss Brantley is out on an approved medical leave. I want to thank Ms. Parker. Our asset group is making decisions. The children get together and try to make decisions on how to recommend things for the whole school that'll make school more fun and better. And I think it's a great reason to have a team. And I really want to thank Ms. Parker for that. So again, thank you guys very much. That's what I got.
Thanks, Scotty. Thanks, Joe. All right, moving on to the superintendent cabinet report.
Well, I think the principals have really captured West River and the coordination of all the adults working towards the benefit of students. So I'm going to keep it really brief. The AOE is providing a template for us in beginning of March, of which we will be required to create a recovery plan. I know Bob doesn't like the term recovery, but the AOE uses it, so we have to use it. But we are preparing for that and look forward to thinking about the future with our students and our schools. Greg Frost, our new director of operations, has integrated himself extremely well. And I think we made a really good hire, and I think we're going to be able to keep the momentum of what Chris Medina started. We've provided a written report for you for all that level of detail. Again, if you have anything that you want to be followed up on, you can always reach out to me individually. And then I just really wanted to point out Craig Roach, in honor of his win on Sunday. He was the best in show for the Ice Shanty Art Contest. So if you drive by the retreat farm, you will see Craig's giant ice shanty. It's a giant picture of Craig covering his face. And in honor of that, he has decided to go with the mustache and the soul patch. So enjoy it while you can.
That's awesome, Greg. Wow. Joe, any questions?
No, I just want Craig to post a picture of his ice shanty so we can all see it.
Good point.
Email it to me. I'll share my screen. Come on.
It's not the one that looks like an outhouse, is it?
No, it's they didn't have facilities, but I looked at that outhouse a couple of times. No.
I did too.
Yeah. We'll post it somehow, somewhere. I don't have it on my school computer, obviously, so but we'll get it out there.
That's great. Thank you. All right, Keegan, did you have anything else you wanted to report out?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered what our last meeting was all about, but we will be meeting in the next week or so just to kind of square things away. And as soon as you have the op-ed pieces available to share with the Commons, if you wanted to send a draft our way, we can also post it on the website. And if we wanted to have the conversation around planning out those coffee talks, we can post the dates and times for that as well. But we're basically in a holding pattern until we have communication ready to be communicated.
Sounds good. Thanks, Keegan. All right, approve financials.
Is that bills and pay orders?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I would make a motion to approve them. I'll give you the figure in just a second. It's I don't see a number of it or whatever. It's bills and pay orders in the amount of $1,275,005.75.
Was that in the form of a motion?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, thought so. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Dana.
Any discussion?
I can just tell you that they've been reviewed by both Trish and I and signed off on and back in the hands of Lori and Terry. And they looked fine.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor? Thumbs up.
Lindsay put her thumb up too.
Saw that. Howie? Oh, thank you, Howie. Appreciate it. All right, there we go. 9-0. Motion carries. Moving on to, all right, so pre-planning for process on long-term planning. The time currently is 8:54. Sorry, Bill, we got off track. We lost 9 minutes. I would say it would probably be best to push that out to March. I think we've already got a pretty good idea that, well, we have a lot of ideas kind of brewing on what we want to do for that. So if nobody else objects, I would like to push that out.
Sounds good, Al.
All right, sounds good.
Push
So
Dana has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Weren't we already going to push that back to like March or April anyways? Didn't we have that on last meetings?
Yeah, we
Didn't
said we were
table
going to.
that?
Yeah, I believe we had mentioned, I made a motion that we would start the long-term planning process in April. So March would be ahead of schedule, and wouldn't that be nice?
Sounds good. And I think our docket may be a little less full next time around, so we might be able to hit that. So great, thank you. So let's get ready to move into executive session. We have a couple things on the docket. We have negotiations update and superintendent evaluation.
So we do not have a negotiations update other than we don't have a agreement for you to review. So I can give you that before you go into an executive session.
An agreement to review?
It is not in our hands. When it becomes in our hands, I will get it in your hands.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bill. All right, I will, let's see. I will entertain a
Motion?
Yes, please.
I will make the motion to move into executive session.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Keegan. Discussion? No, none. Let's move in and end recording. Everybody else have a great night. There we are. We are recording. Okay, we just came out of executive session. There is no action necessary out of executive session. Superintendent evaluation is complete. Upcoming meetings, we do have March 15th, board meeting and budget information. March 23rd, we have the annual meeting and budget information. March 24th, we have the Australian ballot vote. And I think that is it. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Rich,
Thank
thanks for
you.
hanging in there.